Welcome to another episode of Money for Nothing, the podcast about music and capitalism. I'm Saxon Baird with Sam Becker as always. And today we are going to be diving into a topic in which I don't use diving to in any kind of a pun way, but we'll be diving into Tidal. Well, we were, yeah. Also, I was like, this is probably for later, but I was trying to look into that Tidal Rising program. And I was like, all I was getting was like news items about like the environmental impact of like tides rising. And I was like, no, Tidal Rising. And it just kept giving me that. Yeah, basically like a couple episodes ago, there was this big blow up about Spotify and we were talking about it and it kind of toying with the idea of like if there is a ethical alternative to streaming at all. Even I mean, our answer was pretty much no, but one thing I heard a lot of people talk about, and which we talked about on that episode, was that a lot of people were like, well, what about Tidal? And
what
we were
about
like, yeah,
what about Tidal?
And
what about Tidal?
What about Tidal? And then we were like, and then like since then we've been like, what is going on? What Tidal? What is it? What is going on with Tidal? I know exactly one person who's a subscriber. And so for this episode, we're going to answer that question and try to figure out why it exists, where it's going, if anywhere, and what it was, or what it claimed to be. But before we dive into that,
your research went better than my research. If you feel confident that by the end of this, we're gonna be able to explain why Tidal.
I think it's one of those things where like if you think too hard about it, you're like you're getting into the weeds, and if you just like pull back and you go, oh, it's just this, then it kind of makes sense. But I won't show my cards yet.
To learn.
Yeah, I won't show my cards yet. But first, I think it's rare that in this highly polarizing, politicized world that we get to that one of these let's say figures, derided figures and some celebrated figures, ends up at this intersection of music and capitalism. But a few news items in the past week, we actually get to talk about
breaking news.
We're like, oh, we can talk about this. Yeah. We're talking about Elon Musk, who apparently is
the muskiest.
He's back, and he's somewhere. He's actually currently very much in the crosshairs of music and capitalism, and so we were like, well, let's just touch on this really quickly. I mean, it's complete horseshit in the end, but I'll let Sam explain what's going on and give his little hot take, and then we'll dive into Tidal.
Yeah, so basically, as if the beginning of 2026 hasn't been hectic enough, on January 9th, X Corporation, I still can't.
Did they just say X now, or have they moved on from X, formerly known as Twitter?
X Corp.
X.
No, it's also, oh God, remember Meta? When that was announced, I just laughed for like 2 minutes straight, and then I was like, this world is so much dumber than we deserve.
And
but okay. The X
Elon Musk's X Corp.
Yeah, no. Elon Musk's X Corp. The company led by a waterlogged body with a dead rat on top. He's one of the deadest looking men I've ever seen.
For somebody who wants to live forever, he is definitely like looking very dead.
He looks so dead. Like he looks like he's like got like two people behind him moving him around.
He looks like his skin's just about to like fall off at any moment. I mean, honestly,
yeah. He looks like he's got a disease that could only be cured by royalty, and that no one has had except one person in like an Italian villager in 1730, and previously the case before that was like solidly 1600s.
He also looks like I don't know, he's like doing Steve Banning a favor. Um, oddly.
Yeah, as in by looking
Worse. Somehow. But
Steve Bannon looks like an alcoholic groundhog.
I mean, it probably is. But moving on from that, like what's going on with Musk and
These
music?
don't ad hominem attacks. So basically, talking about ad hominem attacks, X launched an ad hominem attack against the music publishers. Quick, it's been a minute, so this is our quick music copyright review for all of you listening at home. Multiple different bundles of copyrights with a piece of music. There's a copyright for the recording. There's a copyright for the composition. Publishers own, and publishers deal with the copyrights for the composition, right? Mm-hmm. Not a performance of a piece of music. Or rather, not the recording of a piece of music. That composition has got a bunch of different copyrights that come off it. One of which is the right to perform it live. One of it is the right to like put it on the interwebs, which is kind of a newer addition, obviously, because when these laws were made up in the early 20th century, no one had thought that they could make a corpse talk yet. So no one had invented the internet. So go back to some of our historical episodes about ASCAP and BMI and the consent decrees, which we can link to in the show notes. But basically, the way that a lot of these performance rights, these publishing copyrights are dealt with, right? That you could do them on a case-by-case basis, but for reasons both good and bad, the good reason being it's very hard to do. The bad reason being, at least initially, the publishers' organizations like ASCAP were thinly veiled musical mafias and actually have consent decrees from the federal government because they would do things like send guys into a bar and be like, "You're playing our songs, you owe us money." And then the bar owner would be like, "Which songs?" And ASCAP would be like, "We don't have to tell you, but we're going to sue you into a hole in the ground if you don't give us money," which is clearly like not that cool. So the point being, the way the system has worked for quite a long time is that for most uses and for most types of copyright infringing situation, you just pay a blanket license that gives you the rights to all of the musical compositions that the publishing rights organization, the PRO, represents, right? So instead of worrying that you have to make an individual deal with every single songwriter in order to have a bar that plays music, say, what you can do is just pay ASCAP and BMI a certain amount of money per year. And that generally handles it. So it is weird because you are like paying money technically for things that you may or may not be using. Mm-hmm. But it's this weird situation that's existed for a long time. And there's more details and intricacies of it, which frankly, like we could get into, most of which I remember, all of which we spent a lot of time on. So really, if you want to hear me and Saxon when we really had these details at our fingertips, go back and listen to some of the episodes because we spent a long time figuring this stuff out. So all that sets the stage for this lawsuit. So basically,
enters the
X
dead
has
rat.
Gone hit.
Sorry.
Enters the dead rat. Well, no, I mean there's a dead rat on the head.
Yeah, the head.
But there's a dead man underneath the dead rat.
Enter Elon Musk.
A waterlogged corpse extraordinaire. Basically X has gone hit with a whole bunch, like a large number of copyright takedown notifications for infringing on the copyrights held by songwriters from major publishers, right? Because publishing companies send these kind of like takedown notifications when someone's infringing on their copyrights. Now, again, most of the time they don't have to do this because they're represented by the three big PROs in America. There's different PROs worldwide, and the PROs have these blanket licenses, right? So the reason, and so Musk gets hit with all of these copyright takedown notifications, and he says that this is evidence of collusive, like monopolistic, illegal practices in the music industry, because all of these, he's getting hit with all these coordinated lawsuits. And the reason he's getting hit with coordinated lawsuits is because he refuses to pay for a blanket license. X is the only social media platform at this point that does not have a blanket license with the performing rights with the music publishers. And they say that this is because they are the only social media platform that music isn't actually important to it. So why should they have to pay for it? Okay, so that's a whole bunch of like back and forth and hooey, but it there is something really interesting there, and I think it does get us at the truly fetid bullshit at the core of like the contemporary Silicon Valley's perspective on intellectual property.
Yeah, totally.
So basically, right, Musk refuses to do a blanket license.
Mm-hmm.
He says that they should be allowed to individually deal with publishers in order to get deals, to put the publisher's materials on X. But as far as I can tell, it'd be one thing that this would pass. It wouldn't pass the smell test, but like it could potentially begin to get somewhere close to passing a smell test. If that was then he was like busy doing one-on-one negotiations with publishing companies, which as far as I can tell, as far as our research has shown, there is no activity or movement towards, because they don't give a fuck about the music industry. This is like one of those rare times when like Trump's trade policy, it's like Trump actually is doing one-on-one deals. But Musk's X is, as far as we can tell, and correct us if we're wrong, and if we missed something, but I did look and found no evidence of it, Musk's X is not. So what Musk wants is a situation in which there's basically a large platform in which cultural material is shared, potentially cultural material that is then accessible to his AI system,
right?
All of which is being pushed by individual users, right? And their activities are under the safe harbor law. So it's possible that you could say, oh, we didn't infringe on anyone's copyright. Our individual users infringed on copyright, but we did train Grok on all of the material that's published on X.
Right.
He wants there then to be, so of course music and snippets of music and music video are important to X. Maybe not crucial, but still important. He wants then to be able to have individual licensing deals and basically to have music publishers, I guess, make deals or do takedowns. But they are doing just that, coordinated takedowns. And he says that this is basically them illegally organizing in order to force X to sign this blanket licensing deal, which they don't want to do. And it's just like, it is interesting because the blanket licensing stuff is weird, right? It's weird that there are these organizations and they kind of represent everyone in these funny ways. They're organized by these consent decrees. It's like one of those like it's one of those edge cases where just open market capitalism doesn't actually work for anyone, and that you actually do need some sort of weird agreed upon middle ground to make everything work. And those weird agreed upon middle grounds, of course, like Silicon Valley is allergic to those, is intent on abusing them to the absolute maximum of their capabilities. Mm-hmm. As it seems like they're doing in this case, right? They're saying, well, if some of you sue us, we want you to sue us one by one. or make deals with us one by one, but we probably don't actually want to make deals with you one by one. And also, of course, individual publishers having to make deals with a large social media platform, that's not a position of power, right? You're not going to get a good deal. It's a much better deal if you all can gather together. So basically, it's applying the atomized logic of social media to actual industries that exist outside of social media, saying you should all act atomized. We won't deal with you together. If you act together in an atomized fashion, that's also illegal. Basically, in summation, we believe that we shouldn't have to pay for music at all.
Which also just kind of like shows like their value, like his value, and like these social media platforms, like how they value like culture in general. Like,
yeah,
I mean, and with like a lot of this stuff, and also like I think the like maybe the political climate as well. There's like absolutely like no foresight and like the repercussions of that as well. Like pissing off the music industry, pissing off artists. Like I don't know, it just seems ridiculous. Also, the funny thing, the economic aspect of it is that if you actually like wanted to negotiate individually with each publisher, it probably would cost more than whatever the hell that blanket license deal costs
for the lawyers. Yeah, totally. Totally, but the point is that also what they want to do is just make this individual artists and their publishers having to issue these takedown orders, none of which will ever happen.
Yeah, ridiculous.
They want to like make it so they can say, we have like info@x.com, and if something's wrong, you can email that, and that's the totality of our interaction with you. They want a voicemail box that is full. Have a nice day. Goodbye. Click.
Which feels to be like quite characteristic of basically everything now that you call.
Yeah, I mean, look. Here's the thing, though. Like, if I was X, I would be more worried about the child porn than about trying to sue the music publishers.
Okay.
Just like, you know, my 2 cents.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of other things they should probably be worrying about, including
rotting corpse,
including that. Yeah. Oh God, Jesus. Well, we'll be watching to see the development of that. Probably won't talk about it too much more, but we just wanted to mention it because and describe it because you might have seen it amongst all the other hellish things that are hitting the headlines. That is one that fell right between right where we sit in this podcast.
I'm talking about hellish things that hit the headlines, Saxon. Just a brief note. Just a brief note to like, as things are occurring, talking about breaking news. We won't do a lot about this, but our last episode where we talked about the potential for a TikTok deal, well, it came true, didn't it? I believe the current quoted price is a whopping $14 billion. So I think that's one lower than it was when we talked about it before. It's the biggest scam, perhaps among the biggest scams in American business history. It's absolutely insane. It's crazy to see like the end of capitalism. It's like, you know, it's like we can't, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism. It's like, well, capitalism kind of ended. It turns out it's just more kings. I don't know if my prediction, which is that we'll get music business information out of this, happens. I think it really depends on how swift this deal is. Of course, what we're talking about here is the sale of American TikTok to a consortium of shady private equity firms and Oracle, which is going to have their fingers on the algorithms of American youth. Donald Trump responded to this news by saying he thinks it's a very great day for America, and he hopes that he will be beloved by people on TikTok for many years, maybe even into the future. Bad. We don't have to talk about it a lot more.
What do you mean the end of? What do you mean the end of capitalism? I mean, that sounds like totally like free market competition, right? Just the government coming in and like Anyways, let's move on to Tidal, which will likely not get sold anytime soon, or maybe not even exist anytime soon. But this is the main topic of the episode, because as I mentioned at the top of the show, we in our episode about kind of everybody kind of briefly thinking about and possibly leaving Spotify, and also something that was part of one of your end of year predictions or things to look for things to look at in the new year. The question came about alternative ethical streaming, and like Tidal came up, and we were like, wait, what is going on with Tidal? And we've been talking about it for a little bit now. So we decided to do an episode on it. And so I guess like to start, let's like maybe just do like a brief history of like of Tidal, the heady days of 2015, when even 10 years ago people were complaining about Spotify and the payouts. We've been having this conversation for a while. And a feisty entrepreneur named Sean Jay-Z Carter led a Project Panther Bidco company to acquire Norway-based streaming service WIMP, which stands for
Incredible name.
WIMP?
Incredible name. Saxon, I want
to use WIMP.
I want a Project Panther Bidco Limited sweatshirt, like just across.
You like that one? I like the fact that there was a streaming service called WIMP. Norway. I don't know. Maybe it means something else there. But yeah, essentially Jay-Z bought it for $50 million from its parent company, and then renamed it and launched Tidal in one of the. I mean, I don't know. I don't really watch like the launches of things. I'm sure they're all pretty bad and like terrible.
The launch is so good.
Actually, the best launch, the best thing, the launch I know the most is the most recent Fireball Apple commercial, which makes fun of like Steve Jobs. I don't know if you've ever seen that commercial. It's pretty good.
Like the liquor Fireball.
Yeah. It's a good one. It's a good commercial. But yeah, I don't really watch launches. But as far as I guess. This one is particularly memorable because it was star-studded, awkward, and bizarre. So if you haven't seen this before, we'll definitely put a link to it in the newsletter for this show. But yeah, essentially with the launch of Tidal, they like took over like a post office in like Midtown. I don't know why this is called a post office, but some office in like Midtown. And Jay-Z brought along Alicia Keys, Arcade Fire's Win Butler and Regine Shasange, however you say her name, Beyonce, Calvin Harris, Coldplay's Chris Martin, Daft Punk, Damian Marley, Deadmau5, Indochine, J. Cole, Jack Watt, Jason Aldean himself, obviously, Jay-Z, Kanye West, Lil Wayne, Madonna, Nicki Minaj, Rihanna, T.I., and Usher, all on the same stage, who apparently all had 3% in the title to launch a streaming service that was claiming that it would essentially would pay artists fairly and also consider the sound quality of streaming, and basically was a shot across the bow to fight Spotify.
They also released a charity single called "We Are the Rich, We Are the Privileged, We Are the Rich."
Yes,
we are the
true.
privileged.
Yeah, I know. It didn't do so well though. But I did hear that in 2018, that Tidal artificially inflated its numbers.
We will get to that. Actually,
we'll get to that.
It's also fascinating. That launch is fascinating in so many ways. One of which is like, it's fascinating to go back and hear in that room the relative applausometer. Like, you know who?
Yes.
Like, wasn't Danger Mouse there? And he got like a lot of applause.
No, Deadmau5 was there.
That was Deadmau5.
Yeah.
Like, he got the most applause, I think, which was weird. Jason Aldean, low levels of applause. That was a Deadmau5. Like, that crowd was there for Deadmau5.
It's Dead so also weird. Like it's so funny that like the songwriters of our like the main like duo of Arcade Fire were there. Like, what?
Well, Arcade Fire were really big in that moment.
Yeah, but like next to like Calvin Harris, like I don't think
Calvin Harris wasn't quite.
Well,
no, it's weird. It's weird.
It's weird. Somebody on that planning committee was like, we need to appeal to like the like suburban indie crowd, and they're like, what about Arcade Fire?
No, it's so fun. I do think it is.
I do like the idea of Win Butler though, like cashing in his 3% after like Jay-Z sold it. That's kind of random. Anyways, continue.
Oh yeah. So I do think it's worthwhile, I would say. So we're gonna stay there at that launch, and I think Yeah, it's a wild event. It's a wild event to like. It's such a weird moment.
Wildly
in time.
unwild.
It's such a weird moment in time.
Yeah, it's a weird encapsulation of time. Yeah, it really is.
It's just like the wackest group ever. It's a collection of people, all of whom had done cool things, none of whom would ever do a cool thing. Calvin Harris has some good songs after that.
Beyonce, I think, came out with Lemonade.
Oh yeah, I forgot Beyonce is there. Beyonce is there. Beyonce did big things.
Rihanna probably dropped a good single here and there. That's just most
Rihanna
people.
was about to. Rihanna's anti still happened, but it's like the peak of this moment of like this,
Jack
this
White
cohort. Yeah. And then they
Damian Marley to never be heard from again.
You mean Damian Jr. Gong Marley?
Yes. So why is he there? So, like,
Chris Martin clearly like continues to sell 1 million records.
Don't worry, we got a Coldplay episode coming soon.
Dear listeners, we're really dredging the bottom of the barrel with our Tidal. This is how we end our podcast listenership. We do a back-to-back episode on Tidal, followed by one on Coldplay.
Just lose all our followers. Don't worry. But yeah, it is a weird encapsulation of time, and there's a certain like sort of like I think like arrogance to it, and like lack of sort of just hitting this like weird note where like all these like super successful but kind of like fading star, very rich artists are like claiming to represent like to restore value of music and like what it like quote unquote written by Tidal, the eyes and ears of the listeners.
Well, it's funny
which means making them pay for it rather than listening for free. So it's like actually like, okay, a bunch of rich people getting up there and being like, you need to pay for music and this is restore the value. And it's like it just really hits such a weird, strange tone,
which is also odd because like we said, and I do think it's useful then to like think about this in the context, because I think that there's totally there's a wonderful, and I've looked and I've been unable to find it. There was in probably 2003 or something. There was this year-long feature on the Onion's AV Club that probably I don't know if we ever talked about this on the podcast.
Yeah, we have talked about this. Yeah, we talked about this. Yeah,
the guy just listened to his entire record collection and like threw out and reviewed stuff and threw out stuff he was never going to listen to again. And like at the end, like listened to all the new artists from the year. It was a really cool project, but he also talked through a bunch of like music concept, like critical concepts that I find really useful and interesting. And one of the ones I come back to a lot is this idea of a shadow career, right? Which is sometimes when you have not the major artist, but like a kind of a minor artist who's still in the industry, seeing how they react. You get a sense of how people are thinking about musical trends by following a less well-known artist. So like seeing what the Temptations are doing in the 70s gives you a really cool idea of what the music industry is thinking of, what the music industry is thinking the 70s are about. And in some ways, it can be a more accurate picture than like what George Clinton was doing, because he was doing all kinds of stuff. And I feel like Tidal is that for the streaming industry, in that it's kind of reacting and and if we follow its path, it was really useful, I thought, as a way to like think of, to get a perspective, a really interesting perspective on like what people thought was happening in music streaming during this period of time. And Tidal's, I think, relative lack of success is actually what makes it such a useful heuristic. And so starting here, it's interesting to think about exactly what you're saying, like this Tidal launch in the context of music in 2015 in where streaming was. And so it's this funny thing, which is like that note, these are these major artists, all of whom had at one point moved units for the most part, right? I think that's the key thing about those people up on that stage. I think everyone there was a pre-digital, maybe Calvin Harris is the exception, but like had a either like major critically acclaimed or like genuine multi-platinum record back when a multi-platinum record meant 1 million people purchased your CD and took it home.
Yeah.
And as we know, that produced a lot of money. And so there is this funny thing that in this moment, and it was just true, this is like Metallica suing the fans on Napster. In this moment, those people, the top 0.1% of the music industry, are the ones who are like, shit, we're not going to make as much money as we were before. Which turned out not to be true. Particularly, like it turned out that 0.1%, the upper echelon of the streaming economy, it actually worked great for them, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's a great point, right?
This group of people is actually but it gives you the sense of how people were thinking about the music economy in 2015, right? They didn't know that they would be fine, that the way the major label system would react, that the way touring would develop, that in all these ways, the people on this stage, they were fine. But in 2015, it's like clap your hands, say yeah. It's the indie bands that are like, man, like streaming and the possibility of like going around the major label system and getting our music out there. This is like, oh, it's the blogosphere, but actually maybe we can make a little bit of money from it. Those people I feel like are more pro streaming, and the very top of the music industry is not. Whereas in retrospect, it's the like B-list artists who, again, the data's very opaque, but it does seem like it's the B-tier artists who are the ones who, like, the musical middle class are the ones who really got the squeeze. And the superstars, it turned out were fine.
Yeah. Looking at this list, I mean, maybe a few of them like have suffered slightly, but yeah, they're the ones who are actually like making the money. But it's also too funny too, where it's like there's like this attitude of like out of this fear or this worry from like the essentially music's 1%, like Jay-Z's approach is like, and I guess the rest of them is like some of these, like this quote right here that I'm looking at that he stated in Billboard at the time in 2015. It's so like I'm just gonna I'm gonna wag my finger at like the music listeners. He wrote, people are not respecting the music and are devaluing it and devaluing what it really means. People really feel like music is free, but will pay $6 for water. It's just like so tone deaf, and he's just up there being like, we're gonna make a cool streaming service and you're gonna fucking pay for it.
Except that, like, weirdly, it's exactly, and this is the bizarre thing, that's a take that you and I have
right. If you pay,
show,
if you really
right, that the thing that streaming, and in particular, the thing that the non-subscription streaming services do is they demonetize music, and they use it as a loss leader for a whole variety of other forms of digital life. And so actually, like, it is this funny moment where like these artists are in fact seeing the mechanisms of the industry click into place, I think. And probably, and this is interesting to think about, given their relative positions of power and access, they have a sense of how the industry is clicking into place and how the industry is moving and how the industry is developing before everyone else does, right? And they see it that we're no longer in the crisis period, when in some ways this is like, you know, the music industry like is a perfect example of never let a good crisis go to waste, right? There's gonna be a cyclical decline. Listen to the calling bullshit on the Napster narrative episode that we did like 3 years ago or something, 4 maybe, about that. Probably, you know, 2003-ish, the music industry was going to fall off a cliff no matter what. There was downloading that happens at the same time that probably made the cliff worse. There's like a chunk of time where it's just chaos, and that chaos allows powerful industry players to remake the world in their favor and break down a lot of old structures. And this 2015, like 2012 2015, is precisely the moment when we're coming out of that chaos and into a like a new normal. And it's funny that like of anyone of all the people to accurately call out the major downside of the new normal, that it's a new normal where Infinite Music costs $10 a month.
Right.
Jay-Z is like a very it's weird that these folks are the ones who are doing it, but they're not wrong. They're right. They're correct.
Yeah, well, they're not wrong, but it's the thing. It's coming out of this fear that like the empire that they've built on their music is gonna like become devalued. Like that's what it's coming out of. You know, we're we're not coming at it from that angle. Okay, so since 2015, it's been a long, winding road for Tidal, and essentially no one's on Tidal. Essentially now,
we will run through talking about long and winding roads. Surprising that Paul McCartney wasn't there,
or Drake, but I guess Drake wasn't as big then. He was maybe had a beef with somebody.
It's a long and winding road. Like
yeah, so. We'll touch on some highlights, like relatively briefly, but I think that like the one that comes after the launch in 2015 is this scandal. So what you have is Beyonce's Lemonade come out, you have Kanye's Life of Pablo, and a Norwegian journalist starts looking at the numbers that Beyonce's Lemonade and Kanye West's Life of Pablo are doing on Tidal. And then looking at the numbers of users that are on Tidal and going, that would mean that like everyone who uses Tidal would have to like listen to these records like 3 times a day or something, and goes, I'm going to look into this. And basically through a long story in which we could also link to, and you can read up on yourself, listeners. We don't have to get into all the details, but does some like, basic like good, clean investigative journalism, and discovers that in most likely, Tidal was just artificially inflating these numbers and probably some sort of like pre-selling off to block last gasp of hoping to somehow get attention or something.
Well, actually,
it gets actually even more complicated than that because of the money. What happens with the money?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, so I think again that like this scam is even more complicated because of the context of what Tidal is claiming to do, right? Is this moment when, again, using this to think about the streaming ecosystem, Apple Music isn't a streaming service yet, exactly. Amazon Music hasn't launched. They're all launching in this time frame. YouTube Music is kind of a thing, but then it's later. So all the other major tech companies are about to have streaming services of one kind or another. Tidal is small and kind of going toe-to-toe or trying to go toe-to-toe with Spotify. And Tidal's value proposition, and actually, again, it's kind of an interesting one, and the fact of its failure is like intriguing, is that what it says it can do is that it's, because it's artist-owned, it's going to differentiate itself through artist deals. So, Life of Pablo, the Rihanna album. I don't think the Beyonce album, but definitely Rihanna's Anti and Kanye West's Life of Pablo are available on Tidal first as exclusives. Remember, a Tidal exclusive for about a week or two. And I think the idea of the service initially is like, why would anyone, what's the difference between these services? And the fact that this one's owned by artists means you could start having like artist only exclusives, having this like it's music plus system. But what it turns out was happening, it seems like, was exactly the people who have ownership in the company and therefore have control over it. Those are the albums that are getting this massive boost. And so, like you said, it's funny because it, like, in some ways, the scandal really cuts the legs out of like the already dying Tidal exclusive model. The other thing, though, is that it, like, it's very unclear why these inflated numbers work. Like, one is like, is this just the artists who own the company pilfering like tech money and sending it to their record companies and therefore to themselves, which is a funny possibility.
Yeah, no, it's this weird. Wait, pause on that for a second. Yeah, because that's actually the crazy consequence of this, is that it's like this weird, like almost like money. So, in theory, right, it's like Tidal would pay, let's say, Sony $4 million, and then like for the royalty payment, that like say like Lemonade would get like 2.5 million of it, or like Life of Pablo like earned like 3.2 million. So that goes back into Kanye and Beyonce's pocket, who have ownership in the company.
Yeah.
You have like a 3% stake in the company. It's like, what the fuck?
Now, what it does is it removes, because of the way the pro rata stuff works, right? All the streams go into a big pool. So they are stealing money from the other people in all
and
the other musicians.
Too.
But also they're like, the other question is like, in a competitive world in which chart success really does enable other kinds of things, was this also just a way to boost their chart success so that they'd get placed higher in other streaming services they don't control? It's very weird.
Yeah. And it's so funny that just like a random like Norwegian, maybe she's not random, but like a Norwegian journalist was like the one who was like,
Well, no, and they got a leaked hard drive.
Yeah, it was an actual leaked hard drive.
It's crazy. Also, Life of Pablo. What? Like, and then he kept changing it on Tidal.
Right, that's right. Yeah, like live changing the track listing or something like that, right?
Yeah, and like re-recording, doing alternate mixes. Like people's verses like came and went in that week when it was just on Tidal.
Yeah, crazy.
Solid album, honestly.
Right. So
you're like, I'm not engaging with that.
We're just not touching Kanye right now. Like,
fair enough.
So
it doesn't work. It doesn't. So in summation, it's interesting, but it doesn't work. They don't have a big boom. No one cares. That initial press release is very off-putting. Then there's like the self-dealing thing. The exclusives. It turns out that artist exclusives, because this is also that moment when like Apple Music paid Frank Ocean like $1 billion to build a staircase on like as an album. Remember that?
No.
Yeah. No, like they like got a visual album that they like paid from Apple Music for Frank Ocean, and he like built a thing live on like, and then like sang part of one song at the very end. And they were like, everyone who had paid. I knew people who were Frank Ocean fanatics. This is like right around the time that Blonde was released, and they bought Apple Music subscriptions just so they could get the Frank Ocean Apple exclusive. And like it wasn't anything really.
Yes. 7 years ago, we were watching Frank build a staircase on stream. Nothing will top excitement and anticipation from this era.
Right? He was building a staircase. I remembered it right. I'm not crazy. So it doesn't work. Their subscription numbers, inflated or not, still stay flat, where they're like, we got 3 million subscribers. Oh, it's actually 1 million subscriber. Meanwhile, Spotify is dominating everything. It's not making a lot of money. It's losing a lot of money. Jay-Z lends it 50 mil at some point.
Oh, yes, right.
They've got high audio stuff. There's kind of like a Pono-esque element here for those who are still like, Pono being, of course, Neil Young's much beloved, much bemoaned, really high fidelity.
Right, which we've mentioned in past episodes for sure, yeah.
Homemade iPod. Yeah, and so it doesn't work. And it's kind of like poodling along, not really doing anything. I knew a couple people who were like
dabbled
into
in
it because they like the fidelity, I guess.
Sure.
Nerds.
Right.
Nerds to a man. And I say to a man because this was a particularly male dude weird obsession. All the people I knew who Tidal were like a specific type of dude.
Okay. But eventually, we don't exactly know what happens, but for some reason, Jack Dorsey owned Block, which owns Square, Cash App. And I think also has PayPal or something.
No.
Okay.
No. Competitors.
Yeah, competitors. Okay. Swoops in and buys Tidal. And that's also under some shady circumstances because it turns out that apparently like this led to also another court case, another lawsuit.
Hilarious lawsuit.
Right. Which basically, and tell me if I'm incorrect here because you're like better at this kind of stuff than me, but if basically like stockholders of Block were like majority share stockholders of Block were like, wait a minute, he just bought like a dying company.
Yeah, basically I don't know, some stockholders from of Block sued to stop the purchase of the company
Tidal.
To stop the purchase of Tidal because they claimed that Jack Dorsey was betraying his fiduciary duty to the shareholders by purchasing a company that clearly sucked so bad that it could never make any money. That it wasn't just not a good deal. They were like, you're actually is this such a bad company that in purchasing it you are breaking the law?
And so it actually goes to a lawsuit, which is eventually dismissed. But just as you said, despite it being dismissed, the Delaware Court of Chancery judge, in her writing memorandum opinion, wrote that Block buying Tidal was, quote, by all accounts, a terrible business decision. So the judge is even like, this is terrible.
And Delaware judges have seen some shit.
For sure. Yeah, it seemed like all accounts, not only were judges considering it terrible and also majority stockholders, but also just everybody in general. Vox tech writer at the time, this guy named Peter Kafka, wrote that basically Square paying for reportedly $3 million for a failed music service doesn't help it accomplish any of its goals, which makes sense because Square, and I guess now called Block or whatever, is like essentially like a payment service, as we all know. So what has been going on with now the Block owned Tidal? And
Saxon.
Let me tell you, go ahead.
Oh, no.
Let me tell you, you sent me, as you usually do, a lot of articles about what's been going on with Tidal, and I read through all of them, and I was truly a tidal wave of corporate speak that was of the uttermost horseshit I have ever read. I was literally squinting because it was so hard to read. Just all this, you know what I'm talking about, listeners. All this kind of corporate
listeners, they pivoted
bullshit. They pivoted all these key terms and all this just nonsense about supporting artists and enhancing user experience and cutting to the core of the true fans and all this shit,
offering increased analytic deployability capability
with lossless audio to it, blah blah blah, just nonsense, absolute just horseshit. I eventually just turned to my phone and texted Sam and said, what is this? What is this bull crap? Let me just actually, I'm going to force this on you. Okay. This is a relatively recent quote, from, I don't know, some C-suite exec at Tidal. Even if we're one of the biggest services, noting that they weren't, just making an artist experience better on Tidal is not enough. You have to know all of your revenue, your data, your collaborators, your access to capital, all of your taxes. It can't be platform captive. Mm-hmm. How you hope for artists to be fortunate enough to work solely on their art if they have no access to this information? What are you talking about? But it's all actually, once again, I think actually a quote like that, as you're noting, it also, what's underlining that is that this is the view of how people view musicians and artists now, as you're not an artist, you are also an entrepreneur, and you're working.
You have to
be, and that's the thing. Yeah, exactly.
And this, I do think though, in its deluge of bullshit, and listeners, they pivot this, they pivot that, they lay off a chunk of the company, and I think 2024, and say they're no longer a music company. They're
offer some kind of services. I found a Reddit thread where hundreds of comments where people are what are they offering, and no one can answer it.
And again, though, I do think that it's a super, and it's kind of it's a super interesting perspective on failures of the music industry or potential ways people are thinking about this, because this is exactly the same type of discourse that we're starting to see from the major labels, right? This idea, we did an episode last year about independent distributors or independent distribution. You talk if the fan-centric streaming 2.0 stuff that Lucian Grange talks about. This is all in that general wash where they're saying, oh, actually, like maybe we're not making it as a service. We're not making it as a streaming service, right? Maybe we can be an artist service that like also has streaming because we're still, they say like, yeah, Jay-Z's still definitely involved. And
yeah, right.
no, but right. And again, this is like how people is like, oh, what we need is actually artists to monetize, because selling music streaming isn't working. So we need to monetize artists' connection to their listeners in different ways, and maybe like we can be the people who do that, which doesn't make any sense. Like that. It makes sense.
Makes no sense, and it also doesn't make any sense how you would actually like make any money off of
the
that.
Labels doing that makes a certain amount of sense, actually. Like as we've talked about, a certain kind of nefarious sense.
Yeah.
And so it is interesting that they're picking up on like where the ship is going, and they're trying to get there. But once again, what they're doing, it makes no sense.
Right, and so one of those things that they were doing is like, and then part of that is like this thing that I mentioned at the top of the show, which is like tidal rising, and like. I once again, as I noted, I kind of like brain dead from like trying to read about all this stuff. But in 2023, they did do something that I think that like I will like tip my cap to. So they did this kind of like weird sort of lottery system type thing where essentially it was kind of around like artist development, where essentially like they were giving like free, let's just say like grants money to like about 100 different artists, right? And then these artists could like upload song. I guess any artist can upload a song, and then it gets put into like this sort of like these different kind of like like Tidal platform charts, like music charts that are on Tidal, and like if you like get a certain amount of streams and you get like a certain amount of money for it. But there was this one thing where they just were essentially like picking up artists and giving them a certain amount of money and letting them do whatever they want with the money. And I mean, one of those artists, actually, interesting enough, was the band Geese in 2023, which is interesting. And I don't know how they spent the money, and and who knows how much money, what they spent the money on. But like, it was this sort of like weird, like philanthropic grant making like type of situation, which once again I think was a PR stunt in a sense to try to get people to engage with the platform more. This whole artist upload thing, which is also problematic too, because you can't get royalties off of it. So you can get money from getting streams on Tidal, but it's in the terms and conditions that if like you can't get any royalties from anyone using that music. So I don't know where that money would be going, but if it's confusing to you, listener, it's because it really is. Like there is a lack of clarity. There's a lack of clarity in not only like what they're trying to do, but how they're even expressing it. But there was this kind of like, and even that pivot, as I will tip my cap to them, and like I hope Geese used the money well and these other artists, and like it felt very like it felt very philanthropic. It still doesn't make any sense in regards to to any kind of like business approach or plan, and what it has to do with like what Tidal is.
Similarly, it turns out that kind of like Bandcamp, but like not.
Yeah.
Totally unbeknownst to me this whole time, in researching for this episode, Tidal has been putting out for like a decade and a half pretty good editorial. They've been hiring music writers and writing like
only a decade,
solid thing. I've never seen
Tidal magazine.
I've never seen a single link or reference to Tidal generated content, but like they had like a brief guide to Sonic Records, like John Zorn's record label, and it's like well written and like someone clearly spent a lot of time on it, and I'm like, this is pretty good. I've never ever once imagined that Tidal had editorial content, though again, you could imagine kind of like what Bandcamp's doing, that like having
or the way the Red Bull Music Academy was doing it.
Yeah, having that integrated in. So all of that like various pushes, this checkered history kind of brings us to today.
Right.
I think, where weirdly, maybe or maybe not, but weirdly, given how things have been shaking out in the music industry, it does feel like Tidal has been handed a fourth chance, a little bit, in that people are interested in switching from Spotify, and maybe actually interested in switching towards, weirdly enough, precisely the kind of thing that Tidal has been attempting to position itself as the whole time, right? Like, if you told people right now that there was an artist-owned, editorially affiliated, philanthropically engaged small boutique streaming service that gave more pays per stream and had artist exclusives,
and owned by the guy who was heading up Twitter in its heyday when we all were happy and on it.
Yeah. Like, and like allowed you to do micro payments. There's a whole micro payments part of Stripe that they promised and never happened. Like, it allowed you to do like buy concert tickets through it because it was integrated with like Square, and then allowed like artists when they were selling merch to not have fees. Like, you can imagine and track the like, you could be like, oh wow, this is actually something that like could be interesting.
Is
and
not
like,
so bad.
Is not so bad. And if Tidal had picked a lane and stuck in it, maybe it could have offered that.
Right.
But I am not going to stand here and bet that they're not going to blow this chance.
I mean, I think, to be honest with you, like there was even an opportunity like a couple months ago, which they could have like maybe even taken advantage of that chance, done some sort of like brief advertising campaign or something, and nothing came of it. And I was curious, I was curious like what about the numbers as well, and yeah, I read one estimate that there's an estimated only 700,000 subscribers in the United States of Tidal.
No.
And like, yeah. and because of the fact that it's like it's now just basically like a I don't know what you call this corporate term for this, but like a vertical of like, or like of block, like you don't really get any data. And like the latest financial data, they like filed a Tidal under like other, which is funny. But yeah, it's a mystery. And so I mean, it's a mystery, but it still lives, and I guess it'll probably continue to live, and maybe, and then the reasons for it will just remain opaque. I think though it's like a kind of like a niche. They've cornered a niche market in in the direct payments that one gets out of like Square and like Block and Cash App. Of like, if you're on a tour, if you're on your touring band, then like, you're going to use Cash App or Square or something like that, but to sell merch. But other than that, like, I don't know why. And somehow, and yet. So,
Saxon.
I will say this. Well, real quick, I will say this, that Block did make something like $900 million last year in profit. Gross profit, and $44 million of it came from Tidal. So that's probably not going anywhere soon. I mean, why not?
Yeah. So I guess maybe to like put a bow on this episode, Saxon, as I think you've been more cynical is not the right word. I mean, it's true, but it's not the right word. You've thought that the Spotify people's critiques of Spotify streaming as an actual thing that could change the music industry. I think you've been less credulous than I have. You've not. I've been more interested in that story, I would say, than I think you have. And so, having done this research on Tidal, what do you think? Right? Like, what do you think? What is this? This is like. This sad, confused saga. Like, what light do you think it sheds on the streaming ecosystem?
I think it's the same response I probably have repeated in different ways, where there is no altruistic, private, for-profit streaming service out there. And like, I don't trust them any more than I trust the rest of them. And I think that, like, even with the sort of, as you noted, like, oh, if I told you there was out there, like, a company that like did this and did that or whatever. But even that, I mean, the artist upload thing is like the artist can't earn royalties from it, right? And so it's like, even that, it is just like full of shade, I guess. And yeah, no, I don't. I think it's a mess, and I don't think it's gonna go anywhere.
Yeah, it reminds me.
I think unfortunately, and I think unfortunately, I disagree with you. I think Spotify's probably here to stay, and I think it's one streaming, to be honest with you. I think I know there could be some pushback on that, and the evidence behind it could be, the fact that it still struggles to make a profit and all that. But yeah, I think it's pretty much one at this point. I mean, everybody uses it. Every bar you go to is playing it. It just seems like really prevalent, and I don't think that there. And we don't need to get into this, but like, as I've stated before, I don't think that there's a whole lot of use. There's some, but I don't think there's a whole lot of use of thinking through your politics through your wallet. But not that you shouldn't check in with your own moral compass and make your own like decisions. And if you feel uncomfortable spending money on something, by all means, like, I completely support you not spending that money or spending that money. But yeah, I think that if you're trying to, let's say in the case of Spotify, like stop the use of AI drone warfare by not using Spotify, I think you should look in the mirror a little bit.
Damn. Such a bummer. I know. I think, like, thinking about the same thing, I'm intrigued though by that 2015 to 2022 moment, right? 7 years, yeah. Right? There was a quote unquote artist owned streaming service for 7 years, and it didn't make any appreciable difference
because it was owned by the wrong artist, probably, right?
Well, there's that. I think that's like, part of it.
Yeah.
And owned by artists who were increasingly not like the Young Thug owned streaming service operates very differently. Like an artist who's
well, I mean, I also think that the Merlin owned streaming service or something, or a sort of consortium of mid-tier independent labels streaming service, or I don't know, fucking even the Bandcamp streaming service or something, I think operates a lot differently.
I mean, I'm also it makes me think about
it's peak Obama neoliberalism,
But I wonder about the complex things that happen. It makes me think about what we mean, what we mean by artists as workers, right? A little bit in that. And the difference between artist owned and cooperative, in that Jay-Z is an artist who made a lot of money, and these other people are artists who made a lot of money and then invested in a company. But that's weirdly that's different than artist owned, because they didn't own it in their capacities as an artist. They didn't own it as in their capacity as a laborer, a musical laborer, or as a performer. They owned it in their capacity as the business part of what they're doing.
Yeah, as entrepreneurs. It's just an investment, They didn't all the fucking corporate speak that they've been spewing out for the last 10 years, from Jay-Z to whatever they're saying now. It's all just to make money.
No, totally. But I just think it's an interesting case study of all the everything is not necessarily there are real differences in management and ownership, and just because you are a worker sometimes doesn't mean that when you're owning a company, you're owning it as a worker. You can own it as a card carrying member of the bourgeoisie.
and it's also interesting to on that note also to that part of the marketing, the very confusing marketing of Tidal, is presenting the opportunity to kind of act as a mini entrepreneur over your own music.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Right, you can upload it, you can upload it, you can earn money from it, you can do it yourself, this whole thing. Yeah, but and then when you're discussing these sort of differences, this seems obvious. I don't think anybody who listens to this show wouldn't consider this.
Yeah, fair enough.
But who's creating the platform, or the digital platform or otherwise, that's allowing you to be this to give you this artist agency? There's always this creation of this narrative, right, about the large walls of the major labels who are unfair and like are going to like fuck you over. So you go out on your own and be your own independent artist and entrepreneur. But that's all marketing too, like
yeah, it's buying into saying like you have to be the same kind of system as they are, just smaller.
Exactly.
What a bummer.
But yeah. Anyway, so I'll be switching over to Tidal soon. Thank you as always. Please subscribe to us. Moneyfornothing.substack.com. Music by Bird Language, and we'll be back soon. Bye.